Good afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for sparing us your time. This is a wonderful house.
Okay.
It's an amazing house. But before I even talk about the house, Peter, you have an amazing story of someone who spent the early years in a children's home, but to be now worth roughly 500 million in
That's
a
what they
house,
say.
in a house that a deal was agreed to abolish slavery.
Yep.
A house that Winston Churchill had his lunch and
Yeah.
visited quite often, and a house that Tom Cruise wanted to buy very recently. Fantastic house. You're an amazing story. I can truly say rags to riches. But you know, in some of these stories we come across, not everybody starts from a great place. And I said, you started from a children's home. You ended up in London. You spent a bit of time homeless, 17 odd. You got into London. You were in a taxi, driving around. And tell me, what did you then... Because one of the things I think I asked you, actually before you even got to that, one of the things I asked you was, you knew you couldn't read and write. You had ADH at school, so you had an issue. And I said, so what did you then rely on getting into London at the age of 17, homeless, and having spent time in children? How do you sort your life out? How do you sort... And you gave me an amazing answer, what you did, how you analysed where you were.
It's really simple, isn't it? How you have to... What you have to do, it's a bit like a business. To run a business, you have to find your strengths, you have to find your weaknesses.
Yeah.
You have to find your competitors, you have to find your loves. Because not everything in business is about a competitor. There's some things that you love, and what you care for, and what you stand for, and what's you. So you have to embed you into the business, first of all. Now that could be the man that's photographing us today, and his love might be cameras, and his love might be filming, but it's also a business, okay? So if you damage your cameras and you treat it just as a business, it will fail. So you have to love your business and polish your cameras and service your cameras and love your cameras.
Yep.
So a business is about love, about passion, about drive. If you have them three things, you have a business. But if you don't have drive, you don't have passion, you don't care about your equipment, you have nothing. Okay? So when you say to me, how did your mindset get you to where you are?
Yeah.
It's really simple. I can't read, I can't write. I'm half deaf, as you've seen.
Yeah, of course. I forgot. That's an extra. That's an extra impediment. Half deaf.
And that was realised when I went to auction one day, and I bought a car which I thought was an A plate, and it turned out to be an F plate 5 years older. Because I didn't, and it cost me about £3,000. And I thought I need to do something about that because basically I can't bloody hear. So you have to look at your weaknesses, you have to look at your strong parts, and that's when you say to yourself, okay, what is my strongest parts of my body and my mind and my personality? So we can't read, we can't write, so what do? I can talk well. So because I can talk well, I can then talk in the way we need to talk to sell cars. And the cars came about when I'd got as a mini-cab driver, and then I used to start selling the cabs, drivers' cars.
Okay.
I then started hiring cars to the mini-cab drivers. And from that, from selling them cars, we started my passion in the car business. So I fell in to the car business basically, from being a mini-cab driver selling cars. Now people used to say, how did you get the money? You know, you was homeless. Well, it was dead simple. We used to charge £1 a mile Don't know what it is today in Hoover, but it was £1 a mile then.
Okay.
And we, if you had a licensed cab and you phoned up, it was 65 pence a mile. If you was in London and you picked someone up, it was £1 a mile. And you went by that, by your speedometer, it was £1 a mile. You set your speedometer trip note, and wherever you went, it was £1 a mile. So we set that up, and then what we done is the first fare that I ever done, I'll never forget it, was a smart guy dressed, and he jumps in my car and he says to me, "Can you take me to Pall Mall?" And I said to him, "Well, if you show me where it is, I'll take you." He said, "You're a cab driver." I said, "Listen, the car is what you're paying for. The knowledge is extra. There's an A to Z there. Let's use the A to Z. And the A to Z was this size."
Yeah,
and huge. We didn't have sat navigation.
Yeah, of course.
It was a big A to Z. You paid £4.95, and you bought them in the garage, and that was your big A to Z, wasn't it?
That's right.
And each page, the front page, you had the whole country was in boxes, wasn't it? Page 54 was pegged.
I used to use them regularly.
Absolutely. So you'll understand what I'm saying.
I know exactly
We've got
what
to
you're
remember
saying.
that the people that we're talking today could be younger and might not understand that.
No, that's a fair comment. They might not.
I'm trying to give you a broad idea. And my first fare took me probably about an hour to get there, and took me 5 hours to get back to the cab office. But I wasn't giving up. I'd got my money, and I would not go home unless I earn £100 a day.
Wow.
If I was out for 2 days to get that £100, which would then be £200, I was there for 2 days. I was not giving up.
So you set yourself goals. This is my
Absolutely.
end of the day. I want this, and that's
You've
my sign
got
of
to
success.
set up goals.
So you set goals even at that age.
You've got to set goals, because if you...
So can I ask? Do you think your difficult childhood and the horrendous experience of that, and problems with your parents, do you think, and then suddenly ending up in a city you weren't born in, which is London, you were born from Scotland, do you think the adversity of the situation, what you'd gone through, is what drove you? Because you'd never seen comfort, but that was a drive that just made you go. Does that make sense? So
I get that, but you have to look at that in a logic area. We can talk about the past.
Yeah.
And we can really blame everything on the past. But I don't believe in the past.
Okay.
We can't change the past.
Yeah.
We can only change the future. Yeah?
Yeah.
What we did wrong yesterday, we can correct today. So the past is the past. It's what can we do today to build the future. So, I remember a long time ago, I had an interview with a guy, and all he talked about was the past.
Yeah.
I had a horrible childhood. My dad used to slap me. I never had the heart to tell the guy, "Listen, I didn't have a father."
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, I only see my father a couple of weeks before he died of cancer. Lovely man who's run away from the case. So you need to understand what you need to do. We can all sit and have doom and gloom and talk about the past. What we have to do is pick ourselves up and look at the future and make the best future you can. People say to me, "You made these decisions, how did you know about it?" I say, if you want to look at a decision, go home and look what your children do. Because whatever your children do today is your customer tomorrow. Okay? And it's a part that people don't realise. Your children today is your customer tomorrow. What are they doing? What is it they do? I've got a son of 7. He sits on his phone, doesn't he, on these Instagram and this, that, and the next thing. That is the future. If you said 25 years ago, well, you're going to be talking to your friends.
That's right.
On a text, on a mobile phone. The first mobile phone I got was the size of a briefcase.
Yeah.
And it had a big phone wire coming out, and your phone in your car was 3 screws screwed on the dashboard with a hook. That was your mobile phone then, with a big wire, black wire, wasn't it? and you had a big drill put through your car with a big black mask, wasn't it? That was the case. And before the mobile phone, it was the CB radio, yeah, rubber duck and all of that. You had a Key 40 aerial stuck out the back of the Mark IV Cortina, right, wasn't it? That was the life.
So it's rapid changes, change. So back to your goals. So
do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
so you've got to live for the future.
Yeah. So back to your goals. So you were £100 at the end of the night. That would then constitute a good day. So is that how you built your capital then?
Yeah. So you build. What you have to do is dead simple, as a business person, and it really, really is simple. Don't spend the money. Make the money make money, and then spend the money that makes money.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's all about investment.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about property, and you say, oh, you've got a lot of property. Well, it's dead simple. It's really easy to understand. You can go down to an allotment and you can grow carrots, and you can grow as many carrots as you like, and you can grow as many terpenes as you like, can't you? But you can't grow land. It's a ball. Once that ball is sold and developed, there is no more land. There's no extension you can put on. There's no nothing. It's a ball with land. So the more land you buy in that ball, the more value it becomes. And the more land you buy, the more valuable you become. It's really simple. Buy land.
So you built your capital day by day by day by day. And then what, you set up and bought your first retail outlet? Is that what you did?
It's quite funny to explain to you. So I moved to Faversham with my first wife. I've been married twice. I still talk to my wife daily. I've no problems with that. We just fell out of love. As we built the business up, I became more into business. We had a lovely son, Jack Waddell, who's got his own little business and doing very well. Very proud of him. And he's got a company called JW Autos in Rochester, doing a fantastic job.
Good.
Very proud of him. And we just fell out of love. But the point was, so you grow your business and you start building. And we moved to a place called Faversham.
Yeah.
And then we met a man called Keith Shepherd, who had a little plaster centre, Cornish centre. He did a lot of this work. And he was going skint, so we rented Tenham BMW in Tenham, which was 12 cars.
Right.
And I valeted the cars, fixed the cars, delivered to them cars. And my wife had a hairdresser upstairs called, what's it called now? I can't remember. It's, I think it was Capital Hairs or something. And then we put a big logo, which was for your hair to look nice at an affordable price. And it was a big logo that we had. So she had the hairdressers upstairs, we was picking the customers up, taking them upstairs, they were getting the blue rinses, £10, and we had all the old age pensioners coming in. There's a story behind this, and we had a customer who used to walk past my showroom every Sunday morning in her nightgown, big nightgowns at the time. And I used to get there at 6 in the morning. I used to get the pressure washer out, in them days it was a Karcher, and you'd put the foam in, and you'd put the foam in the cars, and then you would wash the cars, and then you would spray the cars, and then you would chamois the cars, and you had a process that you washed the first cars, and the next cars behind it, you then foamed them, then you pressure washed them for clean, then you chamoised them, and you went down the line. Now, I used to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning. We used to open at 9. And this woman would come along, and she would talk to me for an hour. Okay? Now, the reason I'm telling you about this story is there's actually a very true point that I'm trying to make. Most people would have spoke to that woman for 5 minutes for the first 3 or 4 times and moved away. I didn't. I spoke to that woman for 3.5 hours. And in fact, in the end, I used to get to the site at 5 o'clock in the morning because I knew she was coming and she was going to take up an hour of my time. The moral of the story is this. I spent 3.5 years talking to this woman every single Sunday morning. Till the end, I sold her F262 VRF, a 325 BMW estate. I took her 12 pence off of her for her Sun newspaper. I did an invoice, and the only condition she asked me to do was to drive it to her drive. I thought it was very strange at the time. I learnt 5 years later, when she passed away, and her son approached the garage for us to buy the car back, that she didn't have a licence. I'd actually sold a woman that didn't have a licence a BMW 325 estate in Green, but she didn't have a licence because she loved talking to me.
Wow.
So my point
Wow.
I'm trying to
Wow.
make is this.
Wow.
If someone comes in to your dealership or to your shop, they may not buy today, but they may buy in 3 years' time. And that's why we have, in all our car supermarkets, you can come in, have a free coffee, free tea, free milkshakes. We do all the big milkshakes for the children. We do the marshmallows, the toppings and everything. And many, many times people used to say to me, why do we spend that money? The children of today is your customer of tomorrow. We need to remember that.
Fantastic.
And it's a big thing.
So you moved from one outlet, I love that, we'll pick that up in a second, around the brand and culture. So then you accelerated and ended up with 11, 12 outlets?
12 outlets, yeah. Well, with 12 outlets, I think it was 4 factories for refurbing. We had the biggest prep centre in Peterborough. We took that business. That business was an old engine factory, and it was dying. And I built that factory within a year, and we had, I think it was, obviously I have so much going on in my head, but I think it was about 200 ramps, or 144 ramps, and we had something like 100 technicians. And I'll never forget the story when people said to me, you'll never fill it. Where are you going to get all these technicians from?
Yeah.
And I sat in the boardroom having an argument one day where people said, we should only pay 40,000 for a technician. I said, well, how much are we paying in London? 60. So we'll pay 60. And they said, why? I said, well, if you pay 60, you're going to fill the place with technicians, aren't you? We opened up and we was gluttoned with technicians to fill it up. And that's the story of how we filled up the site full of technicians at 320 staff, and we were producing 195 cars a day from that factory, which was the old Pilkington factory, which is, we built it and put it back into a factory for cars. So it was another great story for us.
Fantastic. We spoke earlier about, I certainly remember in my time, buying cars from a second-hand dealer. Was difficult for people because everybody thought the worst job out there was either a double glazed salesman or someone who sold second-hand cars. So it's interesting how you built up a national chain of dealers selling second-hand cars in that environment. But you gave me some interesting insights on how you cleaned up or changed the perception of people. So just give me some of the things you did in your dealership which were remarkable at the time, weren't they? The toilets and the customer. I mean, you've already given one idea already there. But
So what you need to understand is really simple. And it was a simple strategy plan that worked. So years ago, and I'm going back many years ago, you used to have an Auto Trader.
yeah,
And the Auto Trader was a magazine that used to come out, and you'd have all your cars, wouldn't you?
yeah,
And your dad would say, we're going to go and look for a car for you today, so we're going to go to 10 garages, and we're going to circle each picture,
yeah,
and you're going to plot along to 10 garages. You remember that?
yep,
Probably your dad bought your first car like that.
yep,
Or he knew somebody in a pub that was a car dealer. That changed in a big way because mobile phones come in. And I remember you used to sit with your Amstrad computer that you'd put in your bedroom, and you would go to your computer to do research on things. But as the mobile phone comes out, how many times do you go home now and sit at a computer? Very rarely, isn't it?
yeah,
You use this,
yeah.
a mobile phone. That is your computer of today. So what happens? The change. And the change is really simple. So in the Auto Trader, you would put 10 miles from my postcode.
Yep.
Okay? So how do you combat that? So it's dead simple. We market the market. We had a great guy who I got a man called Darren Miller, who worked at Car Giant, and that man worked for one of the greatest men in the car industry, a man called Jeff Warren. And I remember going up to his site on the Westway on the E40. It was called the Great Trade Centre then. And I watched how he built an amazing business.
Okay.
And he is probably one of the biggest and best operators in the UK, a man called Jeff Warren. And he, he's 70 now, so obviously he's made a lot of money and he's very respectful. He's one of the old, I call the old car dealers. And he had built a very successful business. But it really is simple. So we got to the stage of, it was a magazine and now it's gone digital. So how do we get to be the best and the biggest? Well, it was really simple. If you was looking for a Fiesta, each garage would have one or two. We would have 22.
Ah, stock.
So for the first 2 pages on the Auto Trader, if we put a branding on there, was Big Motoring World, was Big Motoring World, was Big Motoring World, was Big Motoring World. So where are you going? If you go and buy a tin of beans in Tesco's, you buy baked beans, don't you? Because it's a well-known brand. So it's all about getting your branding out there. Our branding in Big Motoring World was big enough to coat, small enough to care. That was my logo. The now I've got now, if people say to me, what is your future? And I say, go big or go home. Because you have to go big. To scale anything, to make any big money, you have to have little money, but lots of it to make big money.
You also said the way you stood out from the competition, particularly Arthur Daly perception, was to make sure that when people came into the dealership, the experience was different. So what was some of the things you did at that time?
Okay, so if you imagine going into a dealership, you've done the research, you know who owns it, you know the person. If you walked into that dealership and the CEO was there on a Saturday morning, shaking your hand and saying, thank you very much for coming to my business, you feel loved, you feel respected, and you feel that the man cares about his business. That's what I did. I didn't work Monday to Friday as a CEO. I look at some CEOs, I call them office CEOs. They sit in an office and they give an instruction. That's not a CEO. These should be a sergeant and the major in the army. I would rather be the cologne who went over the hill with my team, because they'll be behind me. So you have to understand how you build a business. You build a business through good staff. You build a business by being at the front line with them staff. I opened up the prep centre, okay, in Peterborough, and they had all blue gates. And I said, these blue gates are horrible. We need to do something with them. He said, image. I said, go and get some Amorite. And I'd watched an advert come out about the smooth Amorite, and they did like a rough Amorite, and they did a smooth Amorite just come out. I said, get me some black smooth Amorite. I started painting the gates in the factory in Peterborough. They've never been painted since, I will tell you. They're all rusted now, but they were painted when I first started. And I remember painting the gates, and we was employing these technicians that I was telling you about. And I'm painting the gates, and this guy's turned up, lovely fella, who was an Indian. He brought his whole family to show him where he was working, which was a great thing for us. It's all about family. So he's turned up and he said, you couldn't tell me, so where do I find the man who's going to employ us? I said, if you just go up there and go to the right, it's a man called Dave Selsby. Okay? And Dave Selsby then spoke to me afterwards and said, I found it very funny, boss. I said, what's that? He says, the man of the culture, the person he is, and he's got his family there and all of that, he's asking about the boss, and he's asking about... He said, I told him you passed him. He said, what do you mean? He said, it's a man painting the gates. That's a CEO. That's a proper CEO. And, you know, there's many times, and I hope my wife doesn't read this broadcast, but I bought my wife a Rolls Royce, going back many years ago. And she got a brand new one, and she scuffed the wheel about 3 days into it. And I was going to Peterborough, so I took the car with me. It was about 3 days old. And it was on Friday. And I went round and spoke to the technicians, and, you know, many cultures. If you look at our company, it's so diversified. We have, you know, my wife is Romanian, and you know, my best friend is an Indian. He's a Hyundai. I think Hyundai. Yeah. I usually get mixed up because it's the car business. It's a Hyundai car that used to be there, so I get it mixed up. But I think it's Hyundai. So I do apologise to anybody that's listening to me that I'm a bit dyslexic, so I get things a bit wrong. In fact, I forget people's names, so my agent Lawley, I call him the pest, because I can never remember his name. I can't spell his name, so I call him the little pest. So you need to understand I use a lot of names to remember. You know, like the guy here, he reminds me of Eddie Seagull, you know, the cameraman, because that's what he looks like. So I have names, not because I'm disrespectful, it's just because the way I am. And so we goes through a few of them, and he says, oh, it's Friday, isn't it? I said, I used to go to my grand's sometimes on a Friday, and we'd have a fish supper. Why don't I go and get some fish supper? So I contacts one of the yardmen. I said, look, go round and ask everybody who want fish suppers, chicken suppers, or fish suppers, or steak suppers, whatever. And let's go and get them all fish suppers and a can of iron brew. I said, I've got some Asti Spumante upstairs. We'll give them all a glass of Asti Spumante. It was in the fridge. People at Christmas time used to buy me. I'm actually not a Mort Chandon man. I'm an Asti Spumante man at £6 a bottle. But it's what I like. Yeah. And the story I can tell you in a minute about my boat, about the Asti Spumante, if you remind me. And so we've got all this Asti Spumante, we've got a couple of trays, and we've gone around the whole workshops with Asti Spumante for every single person, from the floor cleaner to the mechanic to the paint stripper, all the way around, okay? I didn't hear to tell the wife, but I went in the Rolls Royce in the boot and got 285 fish suppers, chicken and chips, mushy peas and everything else. And the Rolls Royce stunk for about 2 weeks. I just kept telling it was a new car for a new smell sphere. Really, it was the fish and chips that I drove round the workshop and gave everybody fish and chips and mushy peas.
It's all about people, isn't it? It's all about understanding people.
Absolutely. So
and looking after your people.
If you look at the way you can work, if I said to you, this year I'm going to give you a pay rise of 2% or 5%. If you earn 20,000, that in realistic terms is £500, isn't it? £500 is not a lot of money. But say it equates to 1 week's work. Why don't you tell that person, I'm going to give you an extra week's holiday? Because you can't buy time.
Yeah.
So why would you not give them an extra week's holiday rather than £500? People will go away and say, my God, I get an extra week's holiday. This is fantastic.
Yeah. I
can spend time with my family. So it's a different culture of the way you want to run your business. You see? And by giving somebody a fish and chips, it might be £3.50. But to them, the boss... And I used to do it in the summertime. I used to go down to the co-op and get them little ice poles you get, I think 10 for £2, you know, the orange, green and that. And I would fill my boat up with them. And in the summer I would walk around and give everybody ice lollies all day.
And you were saying, I mean, it's obviously coming across, you're very people-orientated. And that's why you've obviously built up a culture that allowed you to scale.
Absolutely.
What was interesting was I asked you earlier, and you gave me a fascinating story. I said, well, how did you keep everybody motivated? Because, you know, you had over 1,000 employees at one point, and they were growing.
Well, we were 1,430 employees.
So you gave me a fascinating story about what you would do before you would visit one of the outlets.
So, as I said to you earlier, you have two different CEOs. You have a man who calls him a CEO, and I'm the big man, and I'm going to sit in the head office and I'm going to give instructions. Then people fail. If you look at people, I don't know, Richard Branson. Who is Richard Branson? He goes up in balloons, he meets people, he's in airports, he goes to hotels, he goes in his ships, he does all of these things. He spends time with his people. That is a true man, a true CEO, a true entrepreneur. Okay? If you get another CEO who sits in his desk in the head office, then he doesn't know the business. If you don't know the business, how can you give an order? It's a bit like a ship. If you don't have a coordinate, how can you steer a ship? That's when it fails.
And you said before you went to an outlet, you'd make a
so
call.
What I used to do, was having so many staff, is I would call the person the day before, find out the new staff, find out their name, and would physically make a beeline for that person, shake their hand, welcome to the big family. And that's what we did. We was a big family. I took the culture of House of Frasers, where House of Frasers was like, we'll give everybody some shares in the business and we'll make it their business. And that's what we did.
Okay.
We made it their business. We had a dashboard that I'd built, and everyone could see how the business was performing from the dashboard. In fact, I've just built a dashboard for our lorry company, which took us 4 months, which I was showing you earlier. And it shows every single lorry where it is, time, what it's made, mileage per, who the driver is, where we are, and the efficiencies.
So what you did in effect, Peter, which is quite a bit ahead of its time, is you got your employees to understand your vision.
Absolutely.
And not only did they buy into your vision, but actually you were transparent enough to say, here's the dashboard, you can all see how we're doing.
Absolutely.
So you bought the vision, you allowed them to see the vision being developed, you allowed them to see the strategy being worked, and because you knew all them, because you all met them, you built an amazing culture, which in effect goes against what I said earlier about the Arthur Daily, because actually you did everything and that an Arthur Daily wouldn't do. You thought long term, not short term.
Absolutely.
I mean, you were mentioning to make sure that every premise people walked into was top standard.
Absolutely.
The toilets,
so
everything you
I'll
said.
give you an example. I went to Leeds one day, and they didn't even know the owner. I bought these 2 sites from Available Cars, and they said to me, we've never seen the CEO here in 4 years. We don't know who he is. And that's when I said, I've got to spend more time at Leeds. So I used to drive up on a Friday night to Leeds. Now, what you've got to understand, and it's really simple, everyone goes, oh, here comes the CEO, ho.
Yeah.
That's how they are.
Yeah.
And they put on a face. Now, if you watch an interview with a very intelligent man from Amazon, you'll see, and he tells you, that when he does a boardroom meeting, he speaks last.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak first. Because if he speaks first, everyone just agrees with him. If he speaks last, everyone's already give their thoughts, and then he can take that away and understand the business. So how do we do that? We've got salesmen, we've got people making the coffee, we've got all of that. We haven't got a boardroom. So the only way to understand the people is to be on the floor working with them.
They say walking the floor, so you need to work the floor.
So I walk the floor.
Yeah.
But you can't walk the floor as a CEO, you have to walk the floor as one of them. Okay? So you have to become one of them. You have to talk. You need to understand, I'm 59 years of age and you're talking to a young boy of 22. You've got to get down to his level.
Yeah.
He's not going to come up to your level. He doesn't know your level. You've got to go to his level. So, talking about things that he did. Did he go to the pub? Did he go for dinner? Did he meet a girl? How are you doing? What car do you like? all of these different things. Well, if you sold more cars, you better buy that dream car. Are you willing to settle down and buy a house? If you are, how are you going to buy your house? The more cars you sell, the more products you sell, the bigger the house you can get. Let me explain to you how it works to get a mortgage. And you have to go down to their level. It's the only way you're going to build a company. I'm in Kent. I've got sites in Leeds, Sheffield, Cannock, Peterborough, Camberley, Wimbledon, Enfield, Kent, Bluebell Hill, Westmoreland. You can't do that leading that from a chair. Like the CEO we've got now leads it from a chair. That's why he's losing money. You've got to lead it from the front. You've got to love the person you're giving an order to and make them feel wanted, make them feel not a number. So one of the big things that I had, which has really helped me, it's been quite lucky for me, is when they locked me out of the business from, I've got a big court case going on at the moment.
Right, so let's just before we go on to that, in other words, where we are today, let me just pick up a couple of things. You didn't stay just in dealership. You then moved into the haulage business.
That's now, yes.
Yeah. So I suppose my question then is, there's always two things that happen. You either stick with what you know, or sometimes you diversify into something you don't know. Was that easy to do? I know it's still motor vehicles, but suddenly go from
it's
selling...
dead simple, isn't it? It's really simple.
But is okay, so I'm just trying to understand whether other people should do that.
Okay, so it's really simple, isn't it? So if you imagine I turns up at an office one day to collect a rent. The guy's there losing his business.
Collect the rent because you own that property?
I own loads of property.
Okay.
A hell of a lot of property.
Yes, you've got a wide portfolio of real estate, yeah.
So what happens? We have a situation where we get to go and meet a guy, collect the rent, and he's folding his business that day. So I said, let's have a look. And we buy the business.
Okay.
We save 100 jobs, or just under.
Saved?
Just under 100 jobs with lorry drivers and staff. I don't know the full number, but it's that sort of number. And what do? We build it. So we take a man that's on the floor, and he was always touching his arm with, upsetness. We took that man, so you need to understand what you need to do. With a man and a person, you can either do one or two things. You can either stand on him, or you can flourish him.
Yeah.
You can either pour water on him, a flower, like a flower. You stand on a flower, it becomes a weed, or you put water on it, and you feed it, and you make it grow. I'm all for growing people, I'm all for growing things. To me, it's about growing people. So, we took that man, he was in the middle of divorce, losing his house, all these sort of things. I was with the man this week, he was smiling.
So let me ask you, so you took over a business. My guess is, I don't know if you did the numbers, you must have done the numbers to say, is this business salvageable? No. Or did you just do it on gut and thought, I think I could do something with this? Was that a pure gut?
Well, it's not doing something with it, it's doing something with the people.
Okay.
It's doing, you look at people, you think, I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a chance to do something, to grow something, to build something, build a future. So we took the business and we're doing okay. It's turning over £1 million a month.
Wow.
It will get to 2 or 3. We're just in the middle of looking at another business, a container business. So we have refrigeration. We deliver to people like Aldi and all these sort of people. And we take the fruit from the farms to the big warehouses. And it's all about learning. In fact, I'm spending the whole of next month in the lorries with the drivers. I'll be sleeping rough for them. And I want to learn, again, from the bottom. So if you see me on the motorway in a big transport lorry, give us a wave, give us a hoot, give us a flash.
But I think you could argue that very well, I think, from your background, is that you understand every business is a people's business.
Absolutely.
And if you get the people right, the
Absolutely.
business will flourish. So when you took over that haulage firm, the numbers didn't matter as much as the people in there.
Absolutely.
And you thought, well, if I can turn these people around, that's the leadership.
That's
Turn these
correct.
people around, the business will look after itself.
Absolutely.
And I think that's quite a remarkable learning, because most people do it the other way. They don't look at the people, they look at the numbers and say, how can we squeeze more numbers out of this? I'm talking about private equity, I'm talking about those
yes,
kind of
I
organizations. We'll come to that in a second. We'll come to that in a second. But you know, that's generally the model. Not everyone, not all private equity, but most are number driven. They're driven by short-term profit to an exit route long term, whereas you've adopted the complete reverse, which is, I think, absolutely fabulous. So let's come to today then. To today, so you've now got a flourishing haulage firm, which interestingly you turned around in 3 months. And what was remarkable was, and I thought, well, how can you turn something around in 3 months? Well, I now understand it's people. But you were
And
actually...
technology.
Technology, I was just going to say, but you understood the role of technology. Now, that is also remarkable. And that's remarkable because you don't come from a technical background.
No.
Yeah. We're not our current 15, 20-year-olds who are into their technology. But you saw the opportunity to embrace technology to move
Have
the
you
business.
ever read this story about Henry Ford?
No, go on.
Henry
Depends
Ford
which
was
story it
taken
is,
to
but go on.
court, and it's a famous book you read. And he got took to court and he said that there's nothing I can't tell you about cars. And the trading standards was all over him. They took him to court. And he says, "Look, you know, this serious offence." He says, "There's nothing I can't answer about cars." And I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah. Answer me." So cocky, answer. Ask me a question. And this judge came up with this book and he came up with this huge question. And he smiled. And he just says, "Well, you haven't answered." He said, "Now I'm just taking what professor's going to come and answer that question because I'm in talk to call a witness." And he come and answered it. And he answered the 3 questions. And as I said, "Well, you have answered the 3 questions." And as he was walking down from the thing, he said, "I don't need to be the most smartest man. I just need to employ him."
Yeah.
And that's the same as my technology. I'm not a technology person at all. I have a mobile phone, which I struggle with. I struggle with technology. Okay? There's a story. We had a guy called Bob Rupert who used to work in the business as the operation now. He was a shit hot on Apple, shit hot on technology. And we employed a guy who, believe it or not, it's quite a funny story. We took on a man called Adam, who worked in the call centre. We found out he was a programmer, and probably one of the best programmers in the country. And he builds all my apps now.
Wow.
And he built a company with a man called Josh O'Connor, and both of them were best of friends. And they built, in fact, they've just gone on their own now. They've now got their own IT company. Okay, because I'm very proud of these 2 young kids. They still work for me, but I'm very proud of both of them to come from a call centre all the way up to now running their own IT company called Akron. Okay, I get their full name, but I think it's Akron.
Yeah.
And they're 2 lovely guys that we've taken from nothing to becoming, having their own company. So this is what we do. It's profit comes without a problem. It's the people that make the profit. And it's what you've really, really got to understand. I'll get you the name of that company. Lovely, lovely people, Adam. And they've got their own company, Adam Richards. And he's got a company now he's built, which is really good, called Atron. A-T-R-E-O-N. And the reason I'm mentioning that name is for any viewers out there that really need technology is to get in contact with them. Because there's 6 of them now, and they work night and day. but they're the best programmers that I know. And they can program anything. You know, they built me a site for my estate. So in other words, it emails the customer a rent invoice now, it collects the rent, it bills the electric, it does everything. And they built that up within 3 weeks.
Fantastic.
So these are good people. So behind any business now is technology. You need to find the right technology people. If you don't have technology, you don't have a business.
I've got 2 questions and we're going to finish.
Yep.
Interesting that because you have such an interest in people, then because people are everywhere, you're always going to see opportunities for business. So you've already outlined now how you're moving into even more property. You've got a haulage firm. You're looking at other opportunities. You've sold your big world automotive chain. We spoke about the problems of private equity. That'll be for another time. I know you've got differences in trying to sort that out, and you know it's a difficult legal place. But in terms of for you, then 2 things. What's next for you? Is it continue always to just search for opportunities, help people, and where you can invest in them and let them grow? Is that now the new Peter Waddell? Is that what the future looks for you?
So, first of all, we talk about the private equity problem. And there's been a lot of things in the news.
Yeah.
And we get that.
Yeah.
We get
yeah,
that.
you get that.
We sold the business for 207 million.
Yep.
They paid the first round of 73 million.
Yep.
They didn't do the call option. They didn't have the money. They then tried to say that the business was worth a lot less. They didn't want to buy in. 3 months later, we've got a default notice served on us. We didn't have a fair trial, and we would take that to court. It's not a lot I can say about it.
No, that's fine.
In the High Court.
Yeah, and let the High Court sort it out.
Let the High Court sort it out.
And that's the way it
But
is.
the media obviously can say things.
Yeah.
I believe in justice. I believe justice will be served.
Yeah.
And we will deal with it in the High Court. Second of all, to be totally honest with you, I didn't realise probably what I'd built.
Yeah.
I didn't realise how wealthy I was.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, and I never forget a story where they dismissed me and we got a trial with a man called Sybil. So we deal with that. It's all High Court stuff. I can't really say too much about it. But within and my wife said to me, "Oh, better go and get a job." So, what? She said to me, "Well, I can get a cleaner's job because you don't have a wage." I said, "Gabby, we have so much property." What do you mean? You've always told me you were skint. I said, "Well, I'm still telling you I'm skint. Doesn't mean it's going to buy a new bag every week, does it?" But we get quite a bit of rent.
Yeah.
So when I showed her we got a load of rent, she was actually happy, but at the same time saying to me, and excuse my language, but you're a bee because you've been telling me for years that I've got no money and I can't buy bags. But I think we all do that to our wives, don't we, in a little way. I think it's a game we play, isn't it? And it's the same as the wives that, you know, when you ask them for a cup of tea, so I'm rather busy is what they tell you, isn't it? So, you know, it is what it was. So that's the difference now. My life has changed. I spent a lot of time with my young son. I've got a young son of 7.
Yeah.
We was in bed yesterday morning, and he's, you know, he gets to the stage, he's a little man, me, trying to show the muscles and all of this. And I said,
and can I pick that just up for a second? Yeah. Do you think earlier part of your life, you didn't get the life balance right, or did you get it right?
So my first son, and we had this conversation, my first son said to me a couple of years ago, he said, "Dad, he was a horrible father." And that really hurt. I went away for a day thinking. And I come back and I said, "Son," I said, "Look, I didn't have what most people had, which was a perfect life. So I didn't have my father to look up to brush his teeth, to shave a certain way. We all looked at our fathers who guided us. And you would go to your father and you would ask him about your child or whatever. I didn't have that. But what I did have was a business head on my shoulders. And I said, look, son, I just need to explain this to you. And he sort of rolled his eyes. And I said, look, son, as a businessman, when you are growing up, I don't want to look in your eyes when you're 1 year of age and say, what a beautiful son. In my mind, being a tramp at 16, my ambition was to make sure that my son never become a tramp. In fact, my son has 4 houses and I'm very proud of him. I bought some of them, but he's got them.
Yeah.
So, and I said to my son, I just need to ask you one question, son. From being a child, what age are you? He says 1 to 16. I says, okay. I says, until 16 to 75? He says, that's a lot longer. I said, exactly, son. So I didn't go to the pub. I built a business to give you security. You have your own business called JW Autos. I bought you that, didn't I? I bought you your house. I bought your first cars. So to me, I thought of where can I fit in as a father. I don't want him to sleep in the streets. The only thing I can give him is a future. To me, that was more important. Because 1 to 16 is a different situation for this son that I have to my old son.
Different circumstances.
Absolutely. I sat in bed yesterday morning and he was showing his muscles, you know, he said, God, and I said, that's a pea that you've got on your arm. And he said, well, my mum goes to the gym with me. I said, yeah, but let's have a look. Oh, I said, that's a tomato. And he started laughing. He said, well, what have you got? I said, I've got a big cabbage. Have a look at this. He said, I can't get my hands around it. I said, that's right. It's a big cabbage. And he chuckled. And when he come home from school, the first thing he said to me, he said, Dad, I was looking at my school teacher. I don't even think she's got a tomato. I think she's got a plum. That's the difference in quality.
Yeah.
And that's the difference now to what I had with my first son. My son has just had a beautiful grandson, which I'm very proud of. I've got a beautiful granddaughter and I've got a beautiful son. And my son said to me, so my granddaughter was with when the born of the new grandson, and she drew me a lovely picture. And she drew a picture that said, to the greatest granddad in the world. Now most people would put that in their back pocket and away they would go with it. I took it to Spain, I framed it and I put it in her bedroom. And when they came a couple of weeks ago, they went, Dad, I said, yes, because that's priceless. Everyone can have art. To me, that's mine.
But do you think it's possible to build a big business and keep life in balance? Or do you have to accept that you just have to give it everything to make a business work?
Okay, so you need to look at it in 2 ways. What is success?
Yep, that's right.
Is success money? Is it satisfaction? Or is it peace of mind of doing something well? You can also call it ego, if you want to call it ego. You know, I bought a number plate, Mr. Big.
I've seen it.
Yes. I own several number plates. My wife's new Ferrari's VIP1. Okay? And people say to me, oh, you've got a number plate and a big Bentley. I said, no. People come to you, do you want to buy a number plate? Yeah, go and have that. That's what it is. It's not you going to people, it's people coming to you with stuff. And you see the opportunity and you say, well, I'll have that. Rather than have the money in the bank, I'll buy that. I'll use that. The amount of people, and you're going to laugh at this, amount of people. I used to go to London to Fresh Stream, which is a private equity company, and I'd go on Mr. Big. In the end, I stopped going on Mr. Big because I'd put up at the lights. The young women would be walking past, and they would stand in front of the car taking pictures of Mr. Big. And it used to frustrate me until one day one said to me, Peter, you don't get it. I said, no. He says there was a programme called Sex and the City, and there was a Mr. Big. And everybody thought because you was in a Bentley and you've got Mr. Big in your car, that you're the man from the Sex and the City. But what used to annoy me is the light would go green and the person would still be taking a picture. And by the time we took a picture, it went back to red. So it would take me half the time more when I got into the city to go to Fresh Stream's office to do the board meeting.
So really, it's so what you're saying is your life and work balance is dictated by what you think success is, and working backwards. So final comment then, and then we'll finish here. And thank you for your time. Marvelous house.
You like my house?
So, yeah. So if
a lot of people do also.
if I had 4 young or 3 young entrepreneurs sitting in here in front of you, and you were to give them 1 or 2 pieces of advice, what would that be? Because remember, you had a turbulent childhood, you were homeless on the streets, you picked yourself up, you started driving, saw the opportunity to get into cars, worked hard, built your capital up. Underlying, of course, you understood the value of people. So what would your advice be now in today, 2025, to people who want to set up a business? What should they
find a
focus
vision?
on? Yeah.
Find a vision. Drive the vision. Set a target. And don't go away from that target.
Stick to it.
Stick to it fully. You know, I was a minicab driver. I drove with no insurance. I was young.
Yeah.
I was foolish.
Yeah.
And I lost my license and did all of these different things. But you've got to realise where you're going to go. You know? A lot of people in my situation end up in prison, and you go down that road. And a lot of people that, you know, become drug addicts, prostitutes, all of these things, a lot of people come down because they're institutionalised. Sorry, I'm dyslexic.
That's okay.
And that's what happens, but you don't want to give up. Go forward. Achieve.
So let me pick up some of the things you've said today, just as a wrap up. I just talked about piece of advice. So some of the fantastic stuff you've said is, despite the fact you were half deaf, couldn't read or write, you concentrated on your strengths. And you knew you could talk well, so you used that as a strength. But you said you need passion and drive. You said set goals, back to what you've just said. And understand the world of tomorrow, not today or yesterday. Look at the potential purchaser or client going forward. Look at your children. And always think about building a capital investment and let the investment pay you the money then for you to enjoy. You talked about branding, so important. What does your brand stand for? What does customers think of your brand? And I think you gave a great answer as to how you were able to rebel against what people would think about the Arthur Daily, because you did everything opposite to that. But what was really clear was the reason you built up such a strong brand. While aesthetically it looked good, toilets were clean and the coffees and the teas were there, but actually it was understanding people. And I think that was been the key. And part of the understanding people was being available, being seen, walking around, don't disappear in an ivory tower, let people see you. You took culture very important, you placed that centre of what you did, and that was where the people came in. What was brilliant was the way you shared all the information about the business to everybody in the business, so they knew where the business was going and felt a part of it. I think, which was interesting. Bit of advice: if you're sitting in a large gathering and you're the leader, speak last. Let people understand what people are thinking. I love the bit which was, don't be arrogant enough to think that people should come up to your level. You should go down to theirs.
Absolutely.
Lead from the front. Be the last to speak. Growing people, feeding people. Don't be so number-centric, be people-centric. And I think opportunities come. Always continue to learn. And I love the bit about the tech. Enjoy smart people who know more than you do. I love the Ford example. And of course, listen, life and work balance is difficult. Entrepreneurship is difficult. You can't do everything and balance it all. You have to make that choice, but that choice is dependent on what you think is success. And your definition of success will decide or determine for you what that life balance looks like. Peter, it's been a remarkable interview with you.
Thank you.
I think you've done amazing. I think rags to riches, I think, is appropriate, looking at the background. And I think what's really enduring for me is the emphasis on people.
Okay.
And how you've grown a business simply by looking after people. And thank you very much. Thank you for sparing your time. Thank you for bringing us to this marvellous estate. And thank you very much again.
Thank you much.